I love great conversations. Hi, my name is Angel Jones. Thank you for joining me on 12-minute Convos, where I help you create a brand of your own unique, real self. Listen in as I have conversations with amazing people from all over the world. Good night, Ram Castillo. How are you going on this wonderful, beautiful, my time night?
Mate, I'm doing really well. It's a glorious sunny day here in Sydney, Australia.
Hey, it's a great pleasure to connect with you, my friend, from all the other side of the world. Please do tell us which of your talents is responsible for us connecting at this time.
I think it was the podcasting that got us connected via LinkedIn. That's something I have really fallen in love with in the last 2.5 years. But I'm a formally trained graphic designer. I've been doing that for about 13 years, and design as a tool to problem solve and to, I guess, leverage, the puzzles, really adapt into all types of industries, from business to marketing to advertising to entrepreneurship, anything really.
That's intriguing. Well, yeah, most definitely it was the podcast. Let's dive into that first. Tell us about your podcast, starting with the name of it.
Yeah, so it's called Giant Thinkers, and it is something that didn't start off as a podcast. It started off as a blog where I was writing advice for emerging designers to be employed. I myself found it very difficult to navigate my way through the career landscape. It's hard to get your foot in the door. And so I started writing blog posts, and then I wrote my first book, How to Get a Job as a Designer. And then I thought, what other ways can I communicate this information? So I thought podcasting would be the next best thing.
So were you listening to podcasts?
I was for years, for about 5-6 years, from the Tim Ferriss show, one of my all-time favorites, very popular, of course, all the way through to Pat Flynn's, Smart Passive Income, which a lot of people listen to as well. And then just diving into the broad mix of stuff. And I think nowadays, we live in this on-demand life where we can tune in to stuff. If we don't want to listen to music, we can learn something while commuting on the train or, at the gym or whatever.
Yeah. Well, who did you learn the skill? And this is definitely a skill that I picked up from listening to your podcast that I believe you have. You can tell me if I'm off, Raider, when I describe it. But it seems as though you have a skill for learning as you listen. And it's very active. So the podcast conversation you had with that guy's whose name I can't. Usually when you say a doctor's name, you say their last name, right? But
Yeah.
I'd say his first name, right? Because of how scary it looks to pronounce it. Or you could say his last name because it sounded as though you guys are good friends, right? So it's Dr. Jim, and you could say his last name.
Dr. Jim Kokonakis.
Wow,
yes.
Yeah, I couldn't. Wow. Yeah, but it was really an amazing conversation, and it seemed as though you gather information as you learn, right? So he's the optometrist, and it seemed as though it seemed like you're very well educated in that arena as well. Is that accurate?
Thanks for that, Angel. Look, I think for me, it's about really doing your research. Fundamental principle that I would advise to anyone going into a podcasting interview or show. I think researching doesn't necessarily imply that that we're experts at all, but I think having the curiosity to form a bit of background so that you can navigate the conversation and direct the interview. And in this case, it was Dr. Jim, who was an expert in optometry and eye health. And, I was kind of in that space where not only was I not attending to my eyes and giving them the love that they needed, but a lot of my peers as well have the same pain points. So yes, listening, but also diving into what the needs are, and not just asking questions that the time is precious, right? I mean, you've got a show here, it's 12 minutes. So it's kind of like, what is the benefit of speaking to this person. This person has a wealth of experience. So basically summarizing all the questions down to a criteria, and then diluting it down to a set amount, I think is the key.
Yeah, it was definitely great. It felt as though, hey, I'm a patient. I'm going in to see the doctor about my eyes. He's the specialist, so hey, there's already a stigmatization there, right? But I've gone online, I've searched Google, and I have some information, and I'm talking right to the doctor. But it created that platform for a conversation where I learned even more, because it grows and it helps your confidence. And I think the doctor as well, Dr. Jim as well, just helped individuals understand how necessary it is to ask for certain things. Like, hey, yeah, check the pressure in your eye, right? Like, just ask. It's like a very short time it takes to do that. So just ask. And I love how you guys danced through that conversation. Pretty amazing stuff there.
Thank you. I think it's also up to us when we, as an example, when I spoke to this other guest I had on named Oscar Trimboli, and he's an expert in deep listening. And one of the most important things that I learned from him, because he goes through the 5 steps of listening deeper, the first one was, are we ready to listen? And that alone is more of an inward question. When we think about listening, it's like, okay, do I listen for content? Do I listen for context? And yes, all those things were covered in his 5 steps. But the first one was, are we prepared and are we ready to listen? I think it's so powerful in any conversation.
Yeah, love it. Well, that definitely seems to stream through your life. I mean, you got into the graphic world, you listened, and then you created, right? And then you listened, and then you created. And I think it's one of the best way podcasters are represented by the other individuals that are stepping out there, doing the work and then sharing the information.
Yeah,
do you agree with that?
Totally. And one thing that also just came to my mind was when I started out in design, I never thought that I would one day say that I've got 2 books out there in the world. I've done over 60 talks around the world. I've launched a podcast with no audio engineering experience whatsoever. And the question that I always asked myself was, what does the world need that I can give it? And with my second book, it wasn't the idea of product market fit. It was, as a lot of my peers have said, it's market product fit. What does the market first need, and how can you fit a product or a service aligned with them? My second book, How to Get a Mentor as a Designer, I asked my mailing list, what is it that you think that you need, that you believe that I might be able to give you? And within 24 hours, 300 emails got back to me saying, we'd love you to be my mentor. Can you help us get a mentor? What's your advice on mentorship? And so there you go. The book, How to Get a Mentor, was born.
Wow, love it. But Ram, please do tell us one other thing that you've done consistently over the last 3 years.
Apart from releasing a podcast episode every 2 weeks, I would say that I make sure that I am always keeping my relationships alive and touching base with my network and friends and peers, and also actively trying to create new ones. So, the thing is, what I wasn't taught growing up was how important collaboration is, how important it is to be with like-minded people. And it's a part of why I wrote the book, How to Get a Mentor as a Designer, because the premise of this is really something that as humans we can all connect with, and it goes along the same lines of what the Jim Rohn quote is, which is, we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So for me, in the last 3 years, in the last 30 plus years, I'm 31 now, I really am valuing more and more the importance of keeping relationships alive.
How does that make you feel?
You know what? It feels like the kind of happiness that you can't buy. It's that warm, feeling where you can't really put a price on it, and you can't really measure it in the same way that you can measure your new iPhone, for example. It's got a lifespan. It gives you the tingles as soon as you get it, and then after a year, you're like, I want the next shiny thing.
Yeah.
With relationships, it's different. I think it's when you find good people who are in line with your values, it's like you've struck gold.
Yeah. I think the thing that popped in my mind there is the value of it is what you would not trade it for.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We suggest to someone that's listening out there why they should even consider what you've done, Ram, by being an avid listener.
Well, I think for me, there's really no choice now. I don't even see it as a decision. It's kind of like if you want the most out of life, and if you want to succeed in anything, it's really you need to be empathetic. You need to listen. You need to listen to yourself. You need to stop sometimes. And so it's really the core of finding the thing that you want, but you need to go back to this centered place of really, knowing what is it that you want, understanding that time is not a renewable resource. And it can be hard these days. We're bombarded with tens of thousands of messages a day, visually, in all senses. And so I think if people are, and I help people with their careers and navigating their way, especially in the design industry, what I often say to people is you will never know until you test it out. You need to, like spaghetti on the wall, grab the spaghetti, chuck it on the wall and see what sticks.
Love that. Well, amazing audience, we are live with Ram Castillo. Again, you could check him out. He is the podcast host of a pretty amazing podcast. Say the name of the podcast again. I love how you say giant, big. Sorry.
Giant thinkers.
Yeah,
giant thinkers.
Yeah, and you should see his artwork. Like all of his artwork just speaks tremendously of how good he is, from the How to Get a Job as a Designer Guaranteed. Well, I haven't seen the book cover for the How to Get a Mentor as a Designer, but it's really fascinating to see the way you've done the graphical work on your everything, right? Your LinkedIn page is beautiful. Just needed to plug that in there. Ram, let's switch gears for a moment now and let me invite you into my time machine that is surrounded with beautiful warm blue Caribbean water. Ram, what is your earliest childhood memory?
My earliest childhood memory would be me at about 4 years old, sitting on the kitchen floor. Mum is cooking spaghetti and she's asking me what I want to be when I grow up. And I'm making a cardboard robot with empty tissue boxes and toilet paper rolls. And I said, I don't know, Mum, I just want to make stuff. And she stops cooking and she puts her hand on my shoulder and says, okay, Ram, well, whatever you decide to do, make sure you dream big. Make sure you dream bigger, much, much bigger.
Wow. Why do you think this memory is so clear?
Because it was really the springboard to launch my fearlessness, my ability to dream. She never stopped me or judged what my heart desired.
Well, can I offer an interpretation to the thought picture you created in my mind?
Of course.
I love the idea that you're creating in your own special way, but the spaghetti metaphor, wow, like what sticks, right? On
right,
the wall,
there you go.
right?
Yeah, wow, I didn't even think about that.
That is fascinating.
That's great.
Yeah, it's like, did he put that in before he answered this question?
Wow.
Yeah.
You're the only person that's brought that connection together. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. If we fast forward to when you were 12, what was your favorite song?
Oh, mate, I probably didn't even understand it at the time, but it was probably it was definitely Boys to Men.
Right.
Because my older brother listened to Motown and Boys to Men and that type of music. All those songs. I'll Make Love to You. Jeez, at 12, really?
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, but I think it speaks to the passion, though, right? Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. There we go.
It's very soulful. Yeah.
Yeah, you're the second Boys to Men I've heard tonight. The other one was Motown Philly. Yeah. So this other guy, he said Motown Philly was his jam. That's great. Well, Ram, we've arrived at our destination, but before we get off of this time machine, there's a small declaration form. So it's yes or no, possibly a bit more. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Ram, have you chosen someone to pass on your skills to?
No.
Are you married?
Not yet.
Do you have children?
Not yet.
Do you believe in God?
Yes.
Do you have an inner circle of friends?
Yes.
Do you watch TV for more than 3 hours a day?
Ooh, yes.
What about screen time, the phone and the computer? Is it more than 8 or less than 8 hours a day?
Ooh, definitely more than 8.
Ram, after 1,001 conversations in 3 months in 2016, I jokingly say I needed to get butt surgery, right? No, I'm joking. No, I created this workbook.
So good.
I created this workbook, the name of it being called Yours. It stands for Your Own Unique Real Self. And the acronym goes deeper to describe your own unique real statement, which is a lot like your mission statement, if you would. I would like to know from you, Ram, if you had to share with us your own unique real statement, a statement that represents Ram Castillo, what would you say that is?
I really love quotes, but one thing that comes to mind is to lead with generosity and to follow with care.
Love it. Ram, this was a great pleasure. Before you leave, is there anything else you'd like to share with our amazing audience?
I guess I would just say to really, I came back from a yoga retreat last weekend, and I'd only started yoga in the last 6 months. And it's really one thing that I'd like to share, which is to breathe, to really take the time to breathe and to be present in more moments.
Yeah, love it. What does Castillo mean?
It means castle in Spanish, but I'm originally Filipino,
Okay.
but a lot of Filipinos have the Spanish influence.
Okay, cool. Hey, we're all the best building your castle, my friend. Ram Castillo, thank you for being on what is inspired by 12-minute convos with Angel Jones.
Thanks, Angel. You rock, man. All the best.
Thank you for being on 12-minute convos with Angel Jones. Stay tuned for more from our advertisers.
Diabetes is a mountain pandemic. It's a disease that's not acute but chronic. Similar to this rhyming method, I have simplified the definition, the signs and symptoms, and the complications of diabetes for both adults and children in my books, Poems for Patients, A Focus on Diabetes, and The ABCs of Diabetes for Children. These books are available on Amazon.com, and for more information, you can visit my website, poemsbyaj.com. That's poemsbyaj.com.